Hello.
Hey.
How you
Oh,
doing?
good. I like your setup.
You like my, have you ever been to the Rainbow? You had to have been to the Rainbow.
Yes, yes, many times. I was just thinking about it yesterday. I feel like it was in the news for some reason.
Probably opening, probably reopening.
Yes, yes. Been too long. Can't wait.
Yeah. And
Are
you're
you
from, what were you going to say?
are you an indoor person or an outdoor person when you go there?
I do it all. And actually, my band Blackboard Jungle, one of my big achievements, has a poster overlooking the whole dining room, but only because we were moved to make room for the Lemmy statue. So,
I mean, that's a good reason. Yes.
you're from back east as well. You're from Boston, right?
From Cape Cod. Yep. Close
Okay.
enough.
So when I landed, when I first went to California out of high school and went to the Rainbow, it was like going to Mars. I mean, just from what I grew up in, it was right.
Yep. I can't imagine going out of high school too. I mean, what a thrill.
It was pretty crazy. Yeah. And I grew up a suburban New Jersey existence. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't going to New York at 17 and 18 and going to the scrap bar. I was like, what the fuck is this? Nobody works. This is awesome, man. Did you feel the same thing when you first went to LA or?
Yes, especially going to places like that you've heard about and seen, it's like, oh my God, this is that. I'm sitting in that booth. Like, this is where they were. And the way it still feels that way. And when you go
Totally.
upstairs, I feel like I love the way the higher you go, the like darker and darker it is. Yes.
Oh, so it is pretty dirty, and it's still one of those clubs where it still has that thing. I mean, it's rock and roll.
That energy, anything is possible kind of energy.
It really is good and bad. Yeah. You know so much about rock and roll, Caroline. Like when you in the second book, I mean, everybody, I love your books, but from reading you in 2014, going, this is the modern book. This is a whole another way of doing things. But when you described Axels House in Mexico, how did you get, because that's Scott Weiland's house, that's Axel's, they all love the statue. How did you get that in your head? What was that reference?
I just follow things. Like when I get obsessed with listening to something or I can't stop thinking about it, I kind of run with it before I know I'm doing with it. And then I look it up and then let the imagination run wild and I go where I'd want to go,
Oh my God, it was so dead on. And I'm like, you're younger than me, so I'm like, I don't think she went to his house. She's been where, and you only went in because you were with like three girls that got you in Axel's condo or something. But it was exactly like as a kid, I'd be like, why do all older rockers like collecting like statues and swords and stuff? I don't get it. Like,
you make your dreams come true on the page, right?
you really do. You go deep in the psyche, don't you?
That's where I like to be. Yes.
The deep end. And that's what I love about it. I mean, it's crazy because Joe at one point started becoming an adjective, if I'm using the correct term. Like you're being a total Joe. Have you heard that?
Yes. And that's wild because, when something starts as your imaginary friend and it grows, like soon you're talking about it with your friends, your family, it's crazy to see people in the grocery store overhear them. That kind of thing is wild.
It is. And I like Joe. I don't know whether, I was thinking today, is every guy a Joe? I know I've got part Joe in me.
Well, that's why it's called you. I mean, I feel like no matter what, as soon as the internet was invented, right, and we can look things up, it accentuates the voyeur in us. And then when they come up with things that allow us to get closer and closer and track people who don't know we're looking at them, like it's just, even if you don't do it, the possibility that you can is in all of our heads. Like if you want to know more about someone, we all know how. And that's just terrifying to me. Because being a kid who grew up in the 80s, when like you got home, that was it, like there's no way.
Oh, and I think some people go out and just like, oh, who am I going to pick up tonight? But I know me, like Joe, if I like someone, I hyper focus and I date them, I divorce them. We have a whole relationship in my head. And I'm a pretty fearless guy before I even ask them to coffee. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've studied the snow in the back of their picture and
right. And that's what they're there. And I think we all do that to some degree. And that's the part, like those things that you do that afterwards, you're kind of like, oh, that's what I was going for. Like we, especially those of us who do have that passionate streak that also can be really sweet. It can feel really good. And we all kind of want that way. It's someone to feel that way about us at some point,
You can go so many layers deep. I have a friend, we call it 9 layers deep. It's what layer do you, and I know I can go to layer 9. It's the way my mind works, because there's only certain type of people that click with me. And that's, I mean, I relate with Joe, and someone said, you're a total Joe. I like Joe.
Yes, minus the murder. That's my thing. I'm like, it's just about going there, pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. You do that, you maybe do that. We've also seen it in so many movies when the girl says no and the guy keeps going. Like, we've all seen how that can be really romantic.
Yeah, she will love me. You will love me. And then it's like, if we spend enough time together, you really will like me. And it usually does, you know what I mean? But I've got to get in that door. Oh man, you like charcuterie. I like charcuterie. Like, there's so many, and guilty, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. And how could you not be now when it's so easy to go there? And I don't know. I mean, to me, it's in the human instinct anyway. You fall, like, it's called falling for someone.
Yeah.
So if there's a rabbit hole and you can fall in there too, I mean,
it's pretty. And I mean, the book, when I first opened You, there was nothing like it. It was playing on and then to see it become when I heard it was going to become a show, I couldn't believe that this book, it was like a little club. You was a club in 2014. I saw you at a small bookstore. It was a club.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I like that intense group is still there and they're ferocious. Like, we were there in 2014. I'm like, yes, you were. Like, yes. And I think when you read something and you connect with it, it's just different from watching someone do something, So I feel like the book people have this purity, and that's where the books are different, because you're reading it, you're in his head, it's just different.
Yeah. It's so crazy. And now your books are like albums. Like, we wait for them like albums in the 70s or 80s. There's not much stuff like that. I mean, you got to feel pretty proud that we wait. It's like waiting for a Springsteen album or a Guns album or something.
Yeah, when you say that blows my mind, because that feels really good. Like, even this week that people are reading You Love Me and they're like, when's the next one? I'm like, oh my God, like, thank you. I'm so happy that people want more and that it's perceived that way, because of course, when you're writing, sometimes you're like, oh my God, I'm making more of this. Like, I get to make more of this and people want this. It's a very good feeling when it all lines up like that.
Oh my God. And I love Joe, but now you're really killing me with Phil. Sacrifice. Yeah. Dude, am I allowed to talk about Phil? I'm not going to give this.
Absolutely, man.
Oh, Phil is me. Like, dude, I have a radio show. Like, oh no, Phil, Joe and Phil. Like, Phil down to the Mother Love Bone shirt when Joe realizes, wait, he doesn't like the band. There's so, how'd you come up? Phil is this Sacrifice, this band, this old rocker. Come on, hit me with it. It's so detailed.
Yeah, I guess it was the sacrifice. Like, I was starting with Mary Kay, going to Sacrifice. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I like the idea that she was a muse for this guy. And then I'd been thinking about Sacrifice, and it was like Sacrifice. Like, I feel like I did a little like Googling, like, please don't let there be a band named Sacrifice.
That's a great moment, right? When you have when you're like, that's a bit like a GoDaddy moment, like a Spotify moment. Was that amazing when there wasn't?
Yes. And you're not like Phil. Like, I liked him as being in his own cage.
Yes,
like
yes.
Not talking about things only as they pertain to him.
We had a Phil moment on the show. We had some older rockers from LA, and we had a very big Phil. I know I'm not Phil, but you could slip into Phil, especially with a band with a minimal legacy. Like, I'm saying, oh, I got my thing that was a Phil. My poster at the Rainbow is a total Phil.
Right. But I feel that way too. I think part of it came from having the books out in the world for a long time and feeling myself. It's like when you drink your own Kool-Aid even a little bit, I'm like, this guy, he's mainlining the Kool-Aid every day. Like, yes. Because I don't know if you got there yet, but when he goes to Arizona and he's tweeting about like all the babes that are coming, and Joe's like, I can tell the babes didn't show up because you don't have the pictures after. We all get in those moments where we make the mistake of revealing our hopes and dreams. And then we just kind of pretend like it all worked out.
Totally. Springsteen said in his in that words thing where he played with, it's all a magic trick and a con. All of music is a con. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
Phil. I mean, there's just, how'd you get the detail? What were you think? He's perfect. I started
saying, like, I just let him rip, and then I loved it. Like, oh yes, he's that guy who as soon as someone dies, he would be like, I have 10 stories about them.
Oh,
like,
yes. I get in trouble because I say all my Hollywood rockers, a lot of them love a good Hollywood death. Oh, blah, 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 deed. Like, what? People love a good death, and it starts in high school. Let's be honest. That's what we're being honest.
Yes.
People are going to hate that I said that, but that's what these books are, the honesty in your psyche.
Yes. And that what happens to him, like anytime someone dies or he sees, that documentary, or they're so far out of reach that like Eric Clapton is not going to come back to Phil to be like, let's sit down and talk about what you said about me. So Phil knows that's safe territory. He can really, and it comes from a strange place. When I worked years ago at Tiger Beat.
I know you gateway drug, by the way. I was going to say that's a gateway drug to all us getting here.
It is. They gave me all these pictures of the cast of Seventh Heaven, and they were like, 1,000-word story. And I'm sitting there like looking at the pictures. I'm like, oh, where are the transcripts of the interview? And they said, if you say nice things, like here's a picture of him with the dog, and it says, he loves dogs, no one's going to complain. And no one's going to say that you made it up. Just say all nice things. And that stayed with me as, oh God, it's so easy to make shit up.
It's crazy. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. You're so right. Phil is just, just right away with his dress, when Joe realizes, wait, he's not a fan of the band with his tattoo. He's in the band. Oh, just the nightmare.
Yes.
Now you have, this might be Rival You is my favorite. I'm halfway through and I'm flipping out at I feel for Phil a little bit. As I do for Joe.
Too. So yeah, I wanted you to feel for him. Like, I'm happy to hear that, because I feel like that's what these books are too. It wouldn't be fun if Joe just like full throttle was like, I want to kill you. Like, he understands that this guy is not so good at his life, and that Joe wants to help him in his own Joe way. But yeah, I feel like it's hard for anyone to have that and to have and lose anything. And that's what Joe relates to in people, because he doesn't like to lose things either, especially love.
Yeah. And Phil had it. And just how do you know that band guys don't want to take a picture with the new it's amazing. It's just, you're in so many levels deep to I call it the BRD, the Big Rock Dummy Psyche, which all us rockers have. It's just, to what level does it exist in us?
The BRD. I love that. Yeah. It was just fun to imagine like how it all felt when they were young. I think because having that kind of action when you're young, and then I love like here they are now, and how she kind of wouldn't want him to be in there either. So it all works out for everyone, how we can get into those dynamics with people where he didn't want to be in the picture. She doesn't want him to be in the picture. So, so you get this fake picture. Yes.
Oh my gosh. What was the original concept? I don't watch that many interviews, because I just love being in the books. But what was the original where you said, this is where I'm going with the bookstore at the beginning? Like, what was that?
Oh, way back when, it was like, in a selfish way, I love bookstores. I was like, okay, if I write a book, set it in a bookstore, it's good for bookstores. It's a chance that I'll get to go to more bookstores. And also it felt like, going back to that, like, to me being in high school, being like, who did I always fall for? And it was like the guy who worked somewhere, because I could go in and see him, and it didn't mean I was stalking him.
Yeah.
Could find out the schedule from a friend. Not that I ever did that, but just pop in like, oh. So I loved it. And when I've had those jobs and I would do that game with myself, like, oh, this guy, I was working in a bookstore, and I'm like, this guy passes by, he comes back. I'm like, he's coming back for me, not for the books, but for me. So I liked the idea of this kind of psychopath working in there, and it just brings it all to another level, that he's in his territory in his bookstore. And so he feels like everyone coming in is initially his. And I just went from there, of that like possessive mentality of like the way he's turning it around. You walked in here, now you're mine. It was that page one. I'm like, he is someone who thinks that he can own you.
Yes. And that's in a lot of dudes, including myself, psyche. It is. And the store, I've done my retail time at record stores. I was not a record store snob. I worked at the warehouse. But if you go into San Francisco, into some of those record stores, I don't know if those guys are still there, but they're brutal. You bring up the wrong record, what they throw out at you, there's a bookstore right up here. The guy's brutal. I get scared to go in. I want to support my indies. I'm scared shitless of them.
The open sneering, I know, is a thing. It's like the waitress at the diner who's salty. It's just...
Yeah. Like, even you, I'd be like, all right, use like in the middle. He might be okay with me getting this. This is like in, you know what I mean? Like Foghat to him. It's kind of cool, but okay, all right. Like,
and it depends on his mood that day too. I think with all those things, it's always about what's going on. Like who was just there before you too.
Yeah. Like, should I buy Russian literature with this? And like the Tchaikovsky, however you say it,
Right.
like.
And it's also the way so much bad behavior is so common that like good behavior or decent behavior is now thought of as good. Yeah. Like yesterday I went in the grocery store and she's counting bills. So I just kind of stood there. And then when I went up, she's like, oh my God, thank you for waiting so much. That was so nice. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, you were counting. And she's like, oh, so many people, they don't care. They interrupt. I'm like, okay, but that's bad. But that doesn't make me doing the non-asshole thing so good.
Yeah.
What a state we're in. They're like, oh, now in order to be good and praise, you just have to not be a total asshole. Like,
it is pretty crazy. Yeah. I get we're at crazy times. That's so true. And man,
yes.
Joe in the store, just so angry when people pick the wrong book. Oh my gosh. And there's dudes like that.
Yes. And there are girls like that too. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I feel like it can be a two-way street. And like with somebody, because sometimes you also like having that challenge of like wanting to, in the worst part of yourself, you want to get the thing that's going to make the person approve of you. So that's why you put the other book in there.
And then you can mistake that kindness for, well, I know when I worked at the warehouse, there were women would come in that I had just, my first big end of a relationship at 29, 8 years old, 8 years down. I'm really vulnerable. And I'm having like relationships with these women in my head because they're, excuse me, they're smiling at me because I gave them their video days off.
It's all very confusing when you're in a vulnerable spot. Yes.
Yeah, when you're not, and Joe kind of lives there.
Yeah, and then that's where I wanted to go with Phil. Like that he gets to that point in that show where he forgets that he's on air, and I wanted it to get like vulnerable where you feel him like trying to lift himself up because he needs that. No one else is doing it. So I thought it's kind of where people relate like Joe in spite of what he's doing. Because any one of us who's kind of good at kicking our own ass a little bit and finding the bright side, that to me can be an endearing quality. So in the middle of all the grossness, it's like it boils down to someone like Joe just trying to get love, trying to get some of that love that he had back, you know, in his own messed up way.
Yeah. Oh my God. And you mentioned the Honey Drippers, the Robert Plant soundtrack. Sea of Love. And I DJ'd the other night on the boat and they said, you can make it, you need to create a mood. You can't really have people dancing yet, but let's create something cool. And I thought of the book and I played that and it created such a picture. And like 3 people came up for not remembering. Oh, I remember this song in this version. You love
and he
music.
Made for his mother, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that the deal? Yeah. And it's that opening for me. Like, I just love that. It's like you're falling in somewhere. It's just a little mini symphony.
Oh my God.
That is a good way to create a mood on a boat, especially.
Oh yeah.
Even though in the video you see the water, but I feel like you can hear the water in the song. Feel it.
Oh yeah. And I said, totally. You need, I call them orange songs that aren't daytime or nighttime. That song can be a middle where the sun's kind of going down on the water. You gotta, like you, I feel things, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, trying to chain them to different things,
Mm-hmm. No, I like that. That's why I like shuffle, because I love driving around and you hear a certain song at a certain time of day and you're like, that's it. This is when it's meant to, this is when it feels like it lines up with the lighting and
yeah. And I think that's a problem with bands as they get older, why they can't have the songs with the same intensity, because we attached a lot of songs to experiences that we had.
Yes.
And like attaching that song to that experience, you people, once they have kids, getting kids off to college, they might not be attaching. You might write a great song, but I can't attach it to this girl at this time at the video store. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. I think that's so true about art, that it's related to what was going on. And that's what I also wanted to get into with Phil, that like, what do you do if like this moment in your life that was, you were a mess and was awful, gave you great stuff, and when those two things feel against each other, or when you hear something and it brings you back to a good place or a bad place, like it's all related to the timing in so many different levels. Like also when you make a mixtape and for the rest of your life, when you hear one of those songs at random, you expect to hear that other song that you think of as coming after it. And then it sends your brain down certain memory paths. Like, I just feel like there's so much going on in here that fascinates me that I don't fully understand. And that's why I like to write about it.
And you're creating those too. You're creating those things with your books.
Yes, that's what I like to do. That's the magic part, to feel like, oh, I'm participating in that now. Yes.
In the conversation, you're a big part of a conversation at a time. You know what I mean?
Yes. And what you decide to share with people and what you don't, the way that there are so many decisions we make now that we didn't really used to make.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, in the way of social media and how that interferes with real life. Like, something I love with Joe and Mary Kay was when he realizes, but he's like, but at the same time, she didn't want to be that person who's like, and I'm married, like out of nowhere.
Totally.
And I'm like, but when you pair that with her Instagram where she just, skates around it, that's when it becomes a little,
That is so strange, because how come most girls that I have dated don't put pictures of their significant others? And they're not slutty, but they create a mystery. That's.
Well, I feel like that's because when you're raised as a girl, you're always told to be mysterious. And that's what's so strange to me about now. Like, I think everyone should do what they're comfortable with, but it just is fascinating to me that it's like, that was the golden rule as I understood it, of like, leave them wanting more, like, be mysterious.
Totally.
To now, like, here's this way to tell everyone everything.
Yeah, but some girls do still make it mysterious. You gotta, and those are the girls that like, you look at the pic where there's snow in that, there's a hammock there, she's wearing that shirt there with her sister. Like, you start doing the Joe math.
Yes.
Maybe I am really a Joe. I fucking love Joe. like I know he kills people and stuff, but he just
he's
feels
paying attention. Like, I feel like paying attention will get you a lot of places in this world,
Yeah, he's not dying. Like, if you're a woman, you want Joe paying attention, or your guy that's like, hey, babe, can you get me a beer, and playing his PlayStation and just dying on the couch watching sports? Joe's none of that.
Yeah, he has no issues with that. And when everyone's swiping and it feels like, oh, people are interchangeable. Nope.
Man. Hey, how did you put Phil in the Mother Love Bone shirt? That blew my mind, because I loved Mother Love Bone, and a lot of people don't know that really started this whole thing in the 90s.
I think that was part of why, where I wanted it to be clear that he understands that he's torturing himself wearing the thing that he, loves, hates, because he feels like he wasn't that, but he's showing his respect for it. He's creating tension for himself, when he'd be better off in some ways if he just wear the damn Sacrifice shirt, and like, 1 in 100 people would be like, hey, wait a minute, is that you? But no, he's kind of hiding. And I liked the contrast of that with his tattoo. Yeah. Like, the tattoo was a choice long ago that you'd have to spend money to get away from in pain. The shirt is a choice you make every day.
Wow. And how'd you pick Love Bone, which I love? I mean, I'm making my own things up in my head. I like, maybe I'm Joeing out.
Like, I think probably the word love, because of the second book with love, like, that's where I go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A little bit.
And then his relationship, we meet those rockers that met someone once, and it's like a relationship with the girl. He thinks he's had this relationship with Chris Cornell that maybe wasn't what he thought it was.
But also, I feel like it's endearing because, to me, he believes that. It's the way that you tell yourself a story. And at some point, you don't quite know the difference. Even when you have a memory from you're a kid, and it's a story you've heard people tell you so many times, and you can be like, do I remember that, or do I remember being told that story? That's how I feel like Bill has gone so into his own world from talking to himself more than anyone. And we all talk to ourselves, but he's just doing it like outwardly. But then if you figure he's doing it outwardly, imagine what he's doing internally. So yeah, I think he would believe that. And in some ways, again, like, that can be a positive quality. Like, he's believing his own bullshit, which can be a little bit as good. A lot like Phil is, whoa, slow down. But
Wow. And when you write these things, I wonder if it's like writing songs where you get that, where you go, this is pretty good. I mean, I'm sure you have to throw out a lot, but you go, this is real. Okay. I got a feeling. We never know, but you go, this might be really good.
Right. Is it like that for you? Like, I know when I'm having fun.
Yeah. You kind of go.
A while to know if it's any good. And then I feel like you never know if it's any good. You know that it was fun.
Yeah. And then you get your bounce off thing. And I find that the person you're dating maybe isn't the right person, because they'll tell you it's better than it is when they're in that mood, and worse than it is when they're in that mood. So you need to find people that your right spectrum of people to bounce your ideas off of.
So true, because there is such a difference between what's fun to write and then what works, or what. Yeah.
Connection. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what I use. I don't know. I don't do a lot of things very well, but I know I can kind of connect with people in a conversation, in a music conversation. It doesn't mean I'm number one in the world, but connection is everything, because we see people that are great at things that just don't connect.
Yes, and being willing to connect. And I feel like the connection means you're going to hear things. You're going to hear someone say, "Man, I like this, but it's not quite. I don't think it's there yet." And you can't take that as like he hates me. Like you have to be like, yeah. Like sometimes when you hear that something needs more work, it can be the best thing. Like it's that tough love.
Yeah, and there was a book, This Is Your Brain on Music, where it shows that some people like melody, some people like words. We like words. I mean, yeah, so some people absorb. People that don't like their feelings and don't, I mean, there are people that are probably watching this are going to flip out that I relate with Joe and would never admit they like playing it real tight. It would never go there.
Yep, and I understand that. I feel like that's where we all have our own logic, and I get it. So I get it when people are like, I hate him. And I get it when people like, I get the mix of the love and the hate so much. I feel like that's what makes it fun to talk about and read about. Like, because you're getting it all. That was my goal. Like, I just want the inside of this head spilled out. All the stuff that will never be tweeted, never be said to anyone.
No, exactly. The real deal. The real deal. It's
the notepad app in the phone.
Oh, totally. Exactly. It was crazy. When Joe ends up at that Taco Bell at the end of Sunset and PCH, and I had written you as a fan, and you said, that is it. How did you come up with that? Have you been to that Taco Bell? It's an amazing Taco Bell.
One of those sense memories. I can remember the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, like just when I was feeling poor, losery, like it's all impossible. And like, this is, that new to California, holy shit thing. And it's like, oh, there's the Taco Bell. Oh, like that's
those doors, those big wooden doors on the bathrooms, like
yes, years, and I'm thinking of years ago. Like it was funny, like so much has changed. Like even I feel like the Beverly Hills Hotel that I pictured in that book, I remember going in there and it's all beige.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I like it when it was pink and green in your face, so distinctively itself,
Yeah. What was the first time you went there?
The Beverly Hills Hotel, probably like 2004, 3.
Okay, yeah.
I'm bad at the years, but yeah, it would have been, and the same with the Taco Bell. Like I didn't come to California until 2001, and it was only for a couple weeks for work. And I stayed in Pasadena, so I didn't go many places, but
there were still some remnants of the old Hollywoods. You were right at the cusp before it turned to Disneyland hotels.
Yes, and the Rainbow, it's funny, like a friend visited and that was her number one place to go. And I think of going back then and it was different from going now. Yeah. Like it was a little grimier in a good way, grittier.
Yeah. And I was watching that show Paradise City, which no one will. I just liked it just because I knew it would be the background, and they go meet at the Rainbow. Bella Thorne's making out with her boyfriend in the Rainbow. I'm like, Rainbow's just Californications use the Rainbow. It just says so much. Still red vinyl booths, rock and roll. Someone said you can go see Axl Rose drinking next to a guy trying to look like Axl Rose at the Rainbow. That's what.
Yes. And it's, to me, that's the pure joy, and that it brings out the cool in everyone. Like it's one of those places you don't see people going up to people.
Yeah, no.
It's like, like you're not going to walk up, Axl Rose, I'm your biggest fan tonight.
Yeah. You see Axl, then a guy with a patch and a parrot on his shoulder that they let in. You're just like, this is. Especially being from where we are, where it's a little more conservative at times, growing up in Jersey or Cape Cod, it's like, this is paradise to me, man.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully it stays. I'm glad they're open. You said that. Yes. Good.
Yeah. I think it's a landmark now. Yeah. There's just that 70s thing of Zeppelin, Guns N' Roses, that element, because rock and roll is danger. And it has that dangerous element.
And the almost famous of it, that I feel like you romanticize whatever you grow up kind of romanticizing because you're too late. Like I remember seeing Almost Famous, like, I want to live in that, like why was I born to be that age? So it all has this, like, feels a little better than what's available, and that emotion I feel like is just part of being a human.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have those places you can go and feel like you're slipping into it.
How amazing was Almost Famous?
Yes.
It's just such a great love letter Cameron Crowe wrote to rock and roll.
Absolutely.
And now you're like a Cameron Crowe. You're one of these people. Did you ever think? But you're in the conversation. Is that crazy?
Cool. Yes.
I mean, when you're sleeping, people are getting off watching your show. Does that blow your mind that you're giving so much joy out?
Yeah, that's the best feeling. I mean, that's the dream come true. I'm like, that's where it's the same way as like when the book comes out, I'm like, oh, good. Like, never mind me talking about it. I want people up all night reading it. Like, that's the fun. People, absorbing what you make, after waiting for it, especially when people have been so patient. And yes.
Yeah. What was your writing schedule like? What's it? I know there's no magical thing, but do you have a schedule or anything like that?
Well, this year it's so weird because if there's one thing that
Yeah.
I didn't need more of, it was alone time. But I was like, we all got our own individual hellscape and we all got through it. I became more of a morning writer because of the news cycle this year. All of it. It was like I was waking up early. I'm like, okay, at 5 o'clock in the morning, if I wake up and just open the computer, I can get lost in there in a way that I can't after eating this shit all day of like the horror, the horror. Yeah.
Because I think I was talking to somebody, the bands had to be fucked up to write their best songs. But I think you have to be in your subconscious, and getting fucked up gets you to your subconscious. But there's also, I just said that the morning will also get you to your subconscious.
Yes, I like that early morning feeling before I sometimes even before coffee or anything, just kind of I keep the computer close by, like go in whatever's in my head or something that I feel like, it's that other part of your brain that works on things at night that sometimes seem clearer. Like at night, I can stew, I can think, how do I fix this? How do I fix this? What do I do? What do I do? In the morning, I'm like, and you never know if it was there last night, if you needed to do all that neurotic worrying to get there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
totally. Yeah. I mean, and that jailer, I call it the jailer, Kim Fowley. I worked on the guy that formed the Runaways. He everything. And he said, in creativity, I'm going to tell you one thing, don't worry, because you're not going to die or go to jail over what you write or play. Because you get worried, like the creative police, when you're before success, I'm sure you're like, are they going to come arrest me? This is so terrible what I'm writing. You know what I mean? It's boring, but
it's that feeling of either like that two-sided coin of adoration or repulsion. And then coming around to like, people are going to adore and be repulsed. But only if you finish it and get it out there.
That
was part of my energy with Phil too. I'm like, dude, just go finish your album. And I liked Joe for wanting him to do that,
Yes, Joe and Phil, yeah. Well,
it matters so much more to get things done. And then you get to artistically move on and do more.
That's a big problem. It's hard. I say it to all my friends, getting something done, finishing a song and putting it out there is hard.
Yes, absolutely. And I think everyone knows their own system and their own timing is built differently. Like some people want to spend this much time and that's their comfort zone. Other people, boom, boom, boom. Like it's just so different. All you got to do is know yours.
Yeah. I remember as a kid, I was making an album at Sunset Sound Factory. And I said, well, if we're getting this much done here, what if one day I got my own studio? And one of the main engineers had worked with Jackson Browne at his home studio. And he showed me a picture of all these tapes. He goes, see all those tapes? That's his home studio. That's a still unfinished song. It doesn't help. It makes it worse.
Yes. But I get that. Like, I feel like I have things that I've been working on for 20 years. And it's weird to get older and realize, oh my God, like to open that document and see something that's, a really old reference that doesn't feel like old in a good way and be like, so that's life. There it is. Like that thing could just go unfinished,
Yeah. Well, but then you realize everything gets you everywhere. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Every dive you go on a musical dive that you abandon, it all adds up to who you are. And that's what you start to realize. It all adds up.
So much so true. And that's why I'm a big fan of like get in the car. Like I wouldn't have finished that first book if I didn't feel comfortable with like getting in the car, blasting the Elton John just to feel like, get me excited. I feel like all writing is like getting that happy. And even if you hear something that inspires you, that you don't figure it out, but you feel invested again and kind of reward that double feedback, kind of like, oh, good. This is positive. This is good. I feel good.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. What are some of your favorite rock bands? Before you got to tell me some of your favorite rock bands.
Oh gosh, I go on kicks. Like lately, I feel like it's because of being home, but a lot of Fleetwood Mac because it's so soothing. Mm-hmm. My person I'm reading about lately is Van Morrison because it's fascinating.
He's an outlaw.
Yes,
he's a maniac.
The anti-vax, like and then I got kicked out of a concert a few years ago that he did, like several years ago. My friend and I, we had great seats up front and they told us not to use a camera. My friend picks up her camera and they came and kicked us out. I was like, I respect that. Like I like those kind of rules. And I get it if you're up there and you're alone and we were so close. So yeah, he's someone I've been reading about. Gosh, I love Led Zeppelin so much. I like especially them. I realize they're that band that when they come on the shuffle at the red light or when I pull over, I will like go on the iPod and go to Led Zeppelin, like give it to me all right now, one after the other.
Oh, so true.
That's a certain kind of band. Yes. That's like a mood.
It was pretty cool. You would like, I had Fleur who designed all the Motley Crue's clothes and everything in the 80s, Kiss, everybody. She did all their clothes, not super credited, But when she said the main credits that should have been given, she goes, "It's not me, but I would love to know who made Jimmy Page's dragon pants and outfit. That's the ultimate rock and roll grail." She's like, "I've never been able to find it. What's more rock and roll than those dragons?"
That's really true. Yeah. And I'm surprised that that person's they're not known.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
I'm going to look into that. Yes.
Yeah. It was pretty wild. Yeah.
And the last concert I went to was the Rolling Stones, and I got to be in the pit, and that was a blast.
Oh my God.
Yes, and I watched those videos a lot because it was so up close, and I can remember the sweat and the pit of it, like the being so close, and yeah.
Oh my God. I have a playlist I do. It's like sacrilegious. I call it MTV Stones because I grew up on MTV Stones. So I did only,
baby. Yes.
Yeah. I only do the songs I heard on MTV for one of my playlists. But I'm such an MTV baby that I just go, oh, I love Undercover the Night, Neighbors, Start Me Up. It's so
yep.
good.
I won that cassette from a local radio station. That was like the first win of my young life. It was
Which
very
one?
exciting. Steel Wheels.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Oh, so cool.
Big moment. Yes.
Yeah. You winning something.
Yep.
Man. Well, thank you so much, Caroline. This has been so great.
Thank you, Brett. I'm so happy to be here. Yes.
Yes. And say goodbye to everybody and hang out so I can say goodbye to you.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.